The millionaire hid to see how his fiancée treated his sick mother, and the maid did the impossible. Dusk settled over the Reyes estate like a thin layer of amber silk draped across the long glass windows, reflecting the silhouette of a man standing motionless beneath them. Alexander Reyes, 47, billionaire of the cybersecurity world, a man who trusted data, rules, and everything measurable. Yet tonight, he found himself lost in something far less predictable, the vague tremor of unease. In the living room, his mother, Beatriz Reyes, 70, rested in an armchair, her frail hands trembling softly from her degenerative neurological illness. Though her memory flickered in and out like a weak lantern, her intuition had never faltered. When Alex entered, she lifted her gaze, eyes sharp with a clarity that seemed to cut through everything. "Alex," she murmured, "are you certain Valeria is the woman she appears to be?" He laughed gently, masking the sting beneath her question. "Mama, not again. Valeria's good to me. To you too." Beatriz shook her head, slow and troubled. "Good, but not true. I can't explain it. I only feel something is wrong." Alex didn't respond. He refused to let doubt creep in, especially about Valeria Cruz, 32, the immaculate PR strategist praised by magazines and adored at every event she attended. Elegant, composed, flawless down to the rhythm of her breath. He loved her with the full conviction of a man who rarely allowed himself to love at all. But when Beatriz placed her trembling hand over his and tightened her grip, Alex felt a hairline crack open inside him. "My son," she whispered, "don't let appearances blind you." Later that night, in his silent office, Alex stared at the suitcase packed for Tokyo. The flight, the meetings, the schedules, everything was already announced. But he wasn't going. For the first time in his life, he intended to test someone's heart. He would disappear without leaving the house. He would watch Valeria when she believed he was halfway across the world. And Alex had no idea that this decision would lead him straight into the shadow of a truth, one that would test love, trust, and his own heart to its final breaking point. That morning, the sky hung in a pale gray haze, casting a soft veil over the Reyes estate. Alex helped his mother into the car for her routine hospital checkup. The early breeze carried the faint scent of jasmine, but unease pressed heavily on his chest. Beatriz Reyes, though her memory sometimes drifted into fog, still possessed eyes sharp as polished steel. As the car pulled away, she placed her trembling hand on his wrist. "Alex, there's something I must tell you," she whispered. "Valeria, she is not what she shows you." He sighed, trying to keep his tone steady. "Mama, I know you don't like Valeria, but it's not dislike," Beatriz cut in, her voice suddenly firm. "It's that she has a coldness in her eyes, Alex. Whenever she thinks no one is watching, those eyes, they go dead, as if there's no humanity left in her." Alex frowned. "Maybe you misread it. Valeria is always kind to you." "No?" Beatriz leaned back, breath uneven. "Nora heard her speaking on the phone in the garden. She mentioned something that needs to be removed after the wedding." Nora was terrified. She only dared tell me. A chill crawled up Alex's spine. Still, he clung to rationality. "Mama, people talk about work tasks all the time. It doesn't—" Beatriz turned, her fragile eyes blazing with a clarity born from a mother's instinct. "Alex, you're lying to yourself." She gripped his hand, her voice tightening. "Before you marry her, watch how she treats your mother when you're not at home." The words dropped into the small space of the car like a sentence being handed down. Alex stared out the window, buildings sliding past as emotions tangled inside him. Affection, doubt, wounded pride, and something sharp, like a small bite spreading slowly through his conscience. He recalled moments when he'd caught Valeria standing alone in the hallway, her face stripped of the warmth she wore for him. cold, empty. But each time he approached, she shifted expressions with inhuman speed. At the hospital, Beatriz was taken inside for her tests, leaving Alex alone in a long corridor filled with the scent of antiseptic. He pressed his palm against the cool wall, eyes shut. His mother's words etched themselves deeply into him, impossible to push away. He needed the truth, even if it shattered everything he believed. On the drive back from the hospital, the air inside the car felt thick, as if every particle around them clung to the words Beatriz had just spoken. Alex drove slower than usual, eyes fixed on the winding road leading down the valley, yet his mind drifted far away. His mother's sentence, "Watch how she treats me when you're not home," echoed endlessly like a steady knock against his temples. As the car turned onto the tree-lined path toward the estate gate, Alex drew a long breath. No music, no conversation, only the thudding of his heart filling the silence. Beatriz rested in the back seat with her eyes closed, but she still sensed the tension in him. "Alex," she whispered softly, "don't fear the truth. Fearing it is always worse than facing it." Those words sealed his decision. That evening, as sunset drenched the courtyard in golden light, Alex stood by the window of his study, gazing down at the garden where Valeria stood speaking on the phone. He couldn't hear her, but the tautness in her shoulders, the half-smile, the flash of something cold crossing her face made his chest tighten. A sense of danger, one he'd never felt in his own home, brushed across him. "All right," he muttered, voice cracking in the still air. "If Mama is right, I need to see it with my own eyes." The next morning, Alex announced he would fly to Tokyo a day early for meetings. At the front door, Valeria hugged him, her smile gentle as silk. "Text me when you land," she said, her eyes warm enough to almost convince him his fears were illusions. But his heartbeat told a different story. 10 kilometers away, Alex asked the driver to take a side road. A black sedan waited there. He switched cars quickly, pulled a hooded jacket over his head, and returned to the estate through the private gate, known only to family and a few trusted staff. Nora met him with worried eyes. "Are you sure about this, sir? If she finds out—" "She won't," Alex said, voice low. "I need to know who Valeria truly is." Nora led him down a narrow corridor behind the study. The heavy wooden door creaked open to reveal a hidden room once used by Alex's grandfather for research. Tonight, it had a new purpose: truth. Years ago, Alex had turned the old lab into a private security hub, more as a cybersecurity experiment than something he ever intended to use. The cameras were installed to protect his mother and test new encryption protocols, but he had never activated full surveillance inside the house. Watching people he loved felt like crossing a line he never wanted to cross. Until now. Soft blue light glowed from the surveillance monitors. A wooden table lay scattered with notes. Hidden cameras, already placed in every key room, waited to be connected. "The hallway and living room cameras will loop pre-recorded footage," Nora explained. "And this is the one in Mrs. Beatriz's room." Alex held it, his chest tightening. He stepped into the secret room, inhaled deeply, and closed the door behind him. The dim air was cold, silent, except for the pounding in his ears. "Good," he whispered. "Now, let's see the truth." And from that moment on, Alexander Reyes was no longer a trusting fiancé. He became a man staring into the shadow inside his own home for the very first time. Inside the dim secret room, the only light came from the cold blue glow of the surveillance screens casting harsh shadows across Alex's tense face. He leaned forward, fingers interlocked, eyes fixed on the main monitor, showing the living room where Valeria stood alone. Her familiar elegance, her quiet grace, everything about her suddenly felt foreign, as if Alex were watching a stranger wearing the skin of the woman he loved. She stared at her reflection in the tall mirror, smoothing her hair before suddenly removing her earrings and slipping out of her white blouse. She changed into a fitted black athletic outfit. The movement wasn't sensual, it was calculated, prepared. Alex frowned, pulse tightening in his throat. What was she preparing for? Then Valeria slid open a wooden drawer and pulled out a second phone, a plain black one. No case, no charm, no personalization. A phone with a purpose, not a life. Alex leaned even closer, heart dropping. "What is that?" he whispered. Valeria walked toward the glass door, yanked the curtains shut, and in that moment Alex knew whatever he was about to hear would change everything. She dialed. The call connected. Her voice dropped, suddenly cold. "Matthias, can you hear me?" A man's voice answered, deep and steady. "Yeah? Has he gone?" Valeria let out a soft laugh, a laugh Alex had never heard from her before. "Oh, he left like a puppy. Even wished me a good night. Alex is so easy to fool. One sweet line and he believes anything." Alex's stomach twisted violently. A muscle in his jaw twitched as he clenched the armrest of his chair so tightly the wood groaned. Valeria continued, her tone sharp with disdain. "And that annoying old woman, God, I can't stand her. Listening to her talk makes me want to cover my ears." Alex felt something inside him snap. He had heard lies, manipulation, cruelty in the cyber world, but hearing it from her, his fiancée, was a wound too deep to ignore. "This is our chance, Matthias," Valeria said, eyes gleaming with excitement. "He's out. Everything will be easier now. Just a few more weeks." "Be careful with Beatriz," Matthias warned. "She won't remember anything," Valeria replied, brimming with confidence. "Trust me." Alex swallowed hard. He felt torn between the urge to storm out and confront her and the painful need to hear everything. He forced himself to remain still. This was only the beginning. He needed the whole truth. After the call, Valeria fixed her hair, touched up her lipstick, and headed upstairs, toward Beatriz's room. Alex switched the feed instantly, his heart pounding like a drum against his ribs. Valeria entered Beatriz's room with an angelic smile. "Mrs. Beatriz, I brought you some tea," she said sweetly, too sweetly. "You look much better today." Beatriz watched her cautiously. Her memory flickered, but her instinct remained bright and sharp. Valeria placed the tray on the small table beside the bed. But as she leaned down, the camera caught it. Her real face, the slight curl of her lip, the narrowing of her eyes, a flash of pure contempt. Alex felt his skin go cold. Sitting beside the bed, Valeria gently touched the blanket over Beatriz's legs. "Do you ever think maybe you'd prefer a modern care facility? Somewhere with private nurses, constant attention? You'd be so well taken care of?" Beatriz frowned. "I don't want to leave my home." Valeria kept smiling. "But you're so fragile now. I think it's best. And, well, Alex will agree. He always listens to me." During that moment, Beatriz turned her head slightly toward the right, toward the exact corner where the hidden camera was placed. Her gaze was soft but unmistakably directed at Alex, as if saying, "You see it now, don't you?" Alex's heart clenched painfully. Betrayal mixed with rage, sorrow mixed with awakening. The truth was no longer a shadow. It had a face, a voice, a smile painted in lies. Valeria stood, adjusted her outfit, and walked toward the door, still smiling. But for Alex, that smile had already become the darkest thing he had ever seen. Valeria left Beatriz's room with the same flawless smile still clinging to her lips. But once the door clicked shut behind her, that smile dissolved instantly, replaced by a coldness so sharp Alex felt his spine tighten like stretched wire. He watched her every move on the screen, his heart aching, freezing, collapsing all at once. She descended the stairs with quick, purposeful steps, entered the living room, and stood still, as if waiting. Alex leaned closer, breath caught in his throat. 1 second. 2. Then the doorbell rang. Valeria walked to open it, and that was the first moment Alex saw Matthias. Tall, sharply handsome, dark hair neatly styled, shirt unbuttoned just enough to reveal the arrogance of a man who knew he was dangerous. But it wasn't his appearance that chilled Alex. It was his eyes, sharp, predatory, merciless. Before Valeria could speak, Matthias pulled her into his arms. They kissed, deep, hungry, desperate, as if they had waited a lifetime to touch each other again. It wasn't a kiss of lovers. It was the kiss of accomplices, bound by something filthy and calculated. Alex felt as if someone had ripped his heart out of his chest. His fingers tightened on the desk until his knuckles turned ghost white. But the real blow came next. Valeria brushed her hand along Matthias's cheek and whispered, "You came just in time, brother." Alex jolted upright. His blood froze. The horrifying equation clicked instantly. Lover, brother, both, incest, and worse, partnership. They hadn't just crossed a moral line, they had burned it years ago. Growing up in a house where boundaries didn't exist and love was twisted into control, they had learned early that using each other was the only way to survive. Whatever humanity they might have had once had long been replaced by hunger, for money, for power, for dominance over anyone who trusted them. Matthias stepped inside, scanning the house like he already owned it. "He trusts you completely?" he asked. Valeria smirked. "A man blinded by love is easy to control." She pulled him to the sofa, lowering her voice like she was discussing a business deal. "Same plan. Tomorrow night, I'll get the safe key from his desk. I'll swap the prenuptial agreement for ours. Once he signs it, every clause will favor me. In any separation, I walk away with control and a huge piece of his fortune before he even realizes what happened." Matthias lifted a brow. "He won't double-check?" "He believes everything I say." Valeria swirled a glass of wine gently, as if discussing nothing more serious than the weather. As for the old woman, she shrugged carefree. "We increase the dosage. When she weakens, I'll convince Alex to admit her to a nursing home. No one will look too closely." Alex trembled. His eyes stung with rising fury. "Once she's out of the way," Matthias continued, "and no one is pulling him back, we take control of the board. The entire corporation becomes ours." Valeria smiled, the same sweet smile Alex once adored. "And Alex," she whispered, "he'll never know what happened." Inside the secret room, Alex let go of the desk and sank back, drained, hollowed, shattered. No more doubts, no more excuses. Valeria wasn't a mistake. She was a catastrophe, and he, who almost married that catastrophe, was finally staring into the naked, monstrous truth. The silence in the mansion thickened after Valeria and Matthias's venom-soaked conversation. From the surveillance room, Alex remained frozen, as if nailed to the chair. He listened to them talk about money, power, altering the prenup, and even handling his mother, each word a blade slicing into his chest. Danger hung in the air like a toxic fog, and Alex felt it closing around him. When Valeria flashed one last crooked smile before leaving the living room, he knew the darkest part of their plan had not yet unfolded. He barely had time to breathe before the next chapter of the nightmare began. Valeria ascended the staircase with feline lightness, but her eyes, through the camera angle, glinted like steel. She stopped before Beatriz's door, fixed her hair, then put on a smile so artificial Alex felt bile rise in his throat. From her dress pocket, she took out a tiny amber bottle. strong sedatives, the kind Beatriz was supposed to take in extremely small doses. But Valeria... She rolled the bottle between her fingers as if she were playing with someone's life. Alex watched, breath held. She entered Beatriz's room, voice dripping with sweetness. "Mrs. Beatriz, are you awake? I brought you some chamomile tea." Beatriz sat propped against her pillows, weary but still lucid enough to study Valeria with quiet suspicion. "Thank you, dear," she said, but her eyes followed every movement. Valeria prepared the tea just as she always did, but this time she tilted her hand slightly and allowed 3 drops to fall into the cup. They dissolved instantly, leaving no trace. She angled her body so the obvious cameras couldn't see. But Alex, watching from his hidden lens, saw everything. Beatriz took the tea with a faint tremor. "You're very attentive today." "It's my duty," Valeria replied, her smile perfect but cold. Minutes later, Beatriz blinked heavily. Her lips quivered. Her breathing turned shallow and uneven. Valeria observed quietly, like a doctor waiting for a drug to take effect, then stood and stepped toward the door, locking it behind her. Alex shot to his feet so abruptly the chair toppled. "No, Mama, no!" The door to the secret room burst open. Nora rushed in, breathless. "Mr. Alex, Mrs. Beatriz, she's fading fast." He didn't think. He ran. His footsteps pounded across the hallway, the long corridor stretching endlessly before him. He reached the door, grabbed the handle, locked. "Nora, get back!" Alex shouted. "I'm breaking it in!" His eyes landed on the heaviest object nearby, an old brass candlestick. He seized it with the strength of a man fueled by terror and fury. Bam! The lock shuddered. Bam! Wood cracked. Bam! The door gave way, smashing against the wall. Beatriz lay crumpled on the bed, breath thin as smoke, eyes drifting toward unconsciousness. "Mama, stay with me," Alex choked, lifting her into his arms. "Please don't leave me." Nora flung the curtains open and screamed for Dr. Mateo. The following minutes stretched like an eternity. Mateo arrived swiftly, injecting an antidote, massaging her chest, checking her pupils. "She's overdosed," he muttered gravely. "You arrived just in time. A few more minutes and—" He didn't finish. Alex held her hand, tears falling onto her skin. Beatriz's eyes fluttered open. "Alex, mi hijo." He nearly collapsed from relief and anguish. Footsteps echoed sharply down the hall. Valeria appeared with Matthias. They froze at the sight, the shattered door, the doctor working frantically, Alex clutching his mother. Valeria gasped theatrically. "Alex, oh God, what happened? Shut up." Alex's voice was frost. She trembled, stepping closer. "I didn't do anything. I only—" "The tea!" Alex's voice cracked with rage. "You tried to kill my mother with that tea." Matthias began backing away, face draining of color. "Valeria, let's go." But Valeria lunged toward Alex. "You have to believe me. I love you." "Get out of my house." Each word dropped like steel. "Alex, out!" Matthias yanked her arm, pulling her like a criminal fleeing the scene. Valeria looked back, broken, pleading, unhinged. But Alex no longer looked at her. All he saw was his mother, barely clinging to life, and the last remnants of trust he once had in Valeria turning to ash. That night, beneath the dim corridor lights, Alex understood he had severed himself from a darkness he had nearly fallen into, and he would never let it touch him again. After that horrific night, the Reyes mansion felt like a different world, so silent that even the wind brushing the window frames sounded like the house was sighing. Beatriz was moved to the main bedroom with monitors, antidotes, and doctor, Mateo watching over her. Alex almost never left her side. He spent hours sitting there, hollow-eyed from sleepless nights and from a pain that hadn't even begun to heal. By the third morning, Dr. Mateo explained that Beatriz needed a specialized neurorehabilitation nurse. Alex agreed instantly, though deep inside, he found himself flinching whenever someone new stepped into the house. After Valeria, trust felt like a dangerous luxury. And then Luciana Moreno arrived. She came in the late afternoon, sunlight spilling across the glass windows as she stepped inside. 29 years old, petite, hair tied neatly, with a calm, bright face and deep brown eyes that seemed to understand fear without being told. No makeup, no silk dresses, no high heels, just Luciana. Simple, warm, real. "Good afternoon, Mr. Reyes," she said softly. "Dr. Mateo sent me to support Mrs. Beatriz." For the first time since everything fell apart, Alex felt his chest loosen. It wasn't that Luciana was beautiful, it was that kindness radiated from every movement she made, as if she were someone stitched together to patch broken things. Beatriz looked at her once, and a small, rare smile lifted her lips. "This one, she has good eyes," she whispered to Alex when Luciana stepped out to prepare her supplies. "Not like that other girl." Alex didn't respond, but he felt the truth of it settle quietly inside him. In the days that followed, Luciana cared for Beatriz with a softness and steadiness Alex had never witnessed before. She helped her sit up, massaged her hands, spoke to her gently, sometimes even joked lightly, until Beatriz chuckled despite her weakness. Alexander watched from the doorway sometimes, and something inside him eased. One afternoon, while Luciana was checking Beatriz's blood pressure, Alex asked, "How long have you done this kind of work?" "Almost 6 years," she smiled. "I chose neurological recovery because my father had a degenerative disorder. I know what it feels like, wanting someone you love not to suffer even 1 minute more." Alex looked at her. For the first time in weeks, he felt safe. Maybe because Luciana was real, painfully, beautifully real. When Beatriz fell asleep, Luciana placed a cool cloth on her forehead, then turned to him. "You should sleep, Mr. Reyes. Your face tells me you haven't closed your eyes in days." "I'm afraid to," Alex admitted quietly. "Every time I do, I see her." Luciana rested a gentle hand on his shoulder, not pity, but understanding. "It's not wrong to trust the wrong person. It's only wrong if you refuse to rise after falling." The words hit him with unexpected force. A few days later, Alex returned to the company. News of the broken engagement had spread everywhere, and the boardroom felt tense, as if everyone was waiting for him to crumble. Mr. Aguilar, the oldest board member, spoke first. "Reyes, the breakup shook our stock. We need to know you're still stable enough to lead." Alex straightened, inhaled deeply. "You want the truth?" he said. "I'll give you all of it. I was deceived. I lost things because I trusted too easily. But the one thing I didn't lose was the strength to admit I was wrong and fix it." Silence filled the room. Alex continued. "I'm not perfect, but I don't run from my mistakes. I face them. And now I want to focus on the only thing that matters, this company." A long moment passed before Aguilar nodded. "I respect that." The others followed with slow but genuine nods. Alex exhaled, relieved. For the first time since the ordeal began, he felt he wasn't standing alone against the world. As he left the boardroom, his phone buzzed with a message. "Beatriz just finished her nap. Blood pressure stable. Don't worry. Luciana." Alex read it, and for the first time in a long while, he smiled, genuinely. The days following the board meeting brought a fragile sense of calm to the Reyes mansion. Beatriz slowly regained her strength under Luciana's gentle care. Alex began to settle back into work, though the shadows of the past weeks still lingered around the edges of his mind. There were quiet afternoons when he would stand by the window, watching the sunlight stretch across the garden, and convince himself that life was finally returning to normal. But darkness always knows the way back. One evening, while Alex reviewed company reports, the security system suddenly rumbled with a low alarm. He shot to his feet. Red lights flashed across the monitors. He switched to the main panel and read the alert. Unidentified vehicle monitoring South Gate. A chill slid down his spine. He zoomed the camera. A dark sedan stood nearly 200 meters from the gate, lights off, license plate partially obscured, and inside, a shadow of a figure sitting motionless. Even without seeing the face, Alex knew this was no coincidence. At that exact moment, Nora rushed into the room, breathless. "Mr. Alex, I think Luciana is in danger." He turned sharply. "Explain." Nora extended her phone, hand trembling. "She received an email from a neurological support foundation asking to meet tomorrow, but I checked. That foundation doesn't exist." Alex felt the world tilt. A fake email, a surveillance car, Valeria still unaccounted for. And this time the target wasn't him or Beatriz. It was Luciana. That night, while Luciana checked Beatriz's medication, Alex told her everything. She listened without flinching, only tightening her grip on the stethoscope. "So they want to lure me?" she asked. "Not want. They will," Alex replied, "and desperation makes them dangerous." Luciana nodded slowly, eyes steady. "What do we do?" Alex answered without hesitation. "We call the police." The next morning, special operations officers arrived at the mansion, led by Detective Ana Salgado, a small woman with razor-sharp eyes that seemed to cut through lies. After hearing Alex's account, Ana concluded quickly, "This is a bait trap. We're going to turn it against them." She looked at Luciana. "I'll impersonate you." Luciana blinked in surprise, but Ana calmly slipped on a pair of glasses, tied her hair up, and put on a beige cardigan identical to Luciana's. When she stood up, Alex nearly lost his breath. She looked astonishingly similar. Even Luciana murmured, "If I didn't know I was standing here, I'd think that was me." That afternoon, Ana, disguised as Luciana, walked toward the abandoned warehouse on the city's outskirts, where the fake email had summoned her. Alex and the police were already positioned around the area, hidden in the shadows. Alex kept the radio pressed to his ear, eyes locked on Ana's every move. The warehouse door groaned open. For days, Valeria and Matthias had tried to call in old favors, to find someone else to do their dirty work. But news of the failed poisoning and the police investigation had spread faster than they expected. No one wanted to touch the Reyes name now, not for money, not for anything. In the end, desperation left them with only one option: do it themselves. Matthias emerged first, gaunt, exhausted, but still carrying that sharp, dangerous beauty. Behind him, Valeria stepped into the light, hair slightly disheveled, but with a smile sharp enough to slice skin. "Luciana," she purred, "you actually came." Ana remained calm. "I was told this was about a foundation." Valeria laughed, a cruel ringing sound. "A foundation? Oh, sweet girl. Why are kind people always so easy to lure?" Matthias moved closer, eyes gleaming with anticipation. "Come with us. This will all be over soon." Ana tilted her head. "Over? How?" Valeria stepped forward, face twisting into something unhinged. "Kill the old woman, kidnap you, and make Alex pay for ruining my future." The confession echoed like metal hitting stone, sharp, brutal, undeniable. Outside, Alex's breath hitched. He tightened his grip on the radio until his fingers went numb. Ana lifted her hand, the signal. A roar erupted. "Police! Don't move!" Officers flooded the warehouse from every direction. Matthias tried to run, but was tackled instantly. Valeria froze for a heartbeat, then screamed, a wild, broken sound as if something feral inside her had snapped. Alex pushed past two officers, stopping a few meters from her. His eyes held no pain anymore. only ashes. Valeria saw him and crumbled. "Alex, you can't do this. I love you." His voice was soft, hollow, final. "You don't know how to love Valeria." Handcuffs clicked shut around her wrists. Alex remained there until the last patrol car left the warehouse. Only when the flashing lights disappeared into the night did he exhale, a slow, trembling breath of a man realizing the nightmare had finally collapsed. Sunset draped the Reyes estate in a soft orange glow, like a delicate scarf settling across the garden. The sirens were gone. The tension of the past days had dissolved into the evening breeze, carrying the faint scent of jasmine. On the porch, Beatriz sat in her rocking chair, a thin blanket over her legs. She looked stronger than she had in weeks, her gentle eyes reflecting the last streaks of daylight slipping below the horizon. Alex sat beside his mother. Luciana occupied the chair across from them, her hands resting lightly on the wooden rail. The sunset washed over her hair, giving her a quiet warmth that soothed the space around her. For several minutes, none of them spoke. The silence was not heavy. It was the kind that allows wounds to breathe and begin to close. Beatriz was the first to break it. "We're still here," she murmured. "Still together. That's enough." Alex squeezed her hand, then turned to Luciana. He inhaled deeply before speaking. "Luciana, I owe you more than I can say, not just for saving my mother, but for being here, when I couldn't trust anyone else." Luciana lowered her gaze softly. "Trust doesn't disappear. It just hides somewhere safer until you're ready to let it out again." Alex exhaled, the tension easing from his shoulders. "I used to think I was strong, but betrayal shows you how fragile people really are." Luciana smiled, gentle, understanding. "We're fragile, so we can learn how to heal." A breeze moved across the porch, nudging the small silver wind chime Beatriz loved. Its delicate notes floated through the air, carrying a quiet promise of change. Alex leaned back, staring at his hands. "I want to do something bigger than myself, something good." Luciana tilted her head. "What do you have in mind?" He met her eyes, no longer drained, but bright with a softer, steadier resolve. "I want to build a neurological rehabilitation center for people who can't afford treatment. People like my mother, like your father. Healing shouldn't belong only to the wealthy. I've thought about it before, but meeting you made me realize healing takes more than medicine. It needs heart." Luciana fell silent for a moment. The sunset shimmered in her eyes like warm embers. "And you want me to help build it?" "Not want," Alex said softly. "I think that center needs you." A slow smile bloomed on Luciana's lips, tender enough that even the wind seemed to pause, waiting for her answer. "I'd be honored." Beatriz let out a small, contented laugh. "You two make me sleep easier tonight." The sun dipped beyond the trees, leaving behind a thin streak of gold stretching over the grass. The three of them sat quietly, watching the last light fade. No more words were needed. And that night, something in all three of them quietly realigned, not with fireworks, but with the calm certainty that their story was no longer ruled by fear. A month after the storm, the Reyes estate breathed with a softness that felt almost unreal. Light, warm, and peaceful, in a way it had never been before. The hallways, once tinged with fear, now glowed with gentle sunlight. Open windows invited the breeze to bring in the scent of young roses. Beatriz was noticeably stronger. She walked through the garden with newfound steadiness, often leaning into Luciana to tell stories from her youth, her voice clearer, no longer trembling like those fragile days when she hovered at the edge of danger. This evening, the sunset stretched a warm orange veil over the stone courtyard. Alex watched from the steps as his mother made her way to the rocking chair on the porch. Luciana walked beside her, holding her arm with a softness that felt almost sacred. The sight made Alex pause. Some moments didn't need words. Just watching was enough to understand that life was stitching itself back together. When Beatriz settled into her chair and began reminiscing about lavish old parties from her youth, Alex stepped closer to Luciana. The wind played with her hair, lifting a few loose strands into the golden light, as if the sunset itself were lingering around her. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for everything you've done for my mother." Luciana looked at him, her brown eyes glowing in the fading light. "I only did what anyone should do. When someone is vulnerable, we help them stand. That's honesty. And honesty will always be stronger than any kind of deception." Her words tightened something in Alex's chest, a gentle tug at a part of his heart he thought had sealed itself shut. He watched the sky burn slowly into twilight and let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "I used to think I'd never trust again," Alex confessed. Luciana tilted her head, smiling softly. "Everyone deserves to be loved again, Alex. No wound demands that we stay in the dark forever." The breeze swept past once more, carrying the warmth of a day preparing to end. Alex looked down at his hands, then back at Luciana. Without forcing anything, without rushing towards something he didn't yet understand, he simply reached out his hand, a quiet invitation. Luciana looked at it for a heartbeat, then placed her smaller hand into his. The moment their fingers intertwined, the sun dipped to the edge of the treetops, releasing one final streak of golden light, thin, tender, and impossibly beautiful, like the first glimmer of a new beginning after endless nights. Beatriz glanced over, a playful, knowing smile spreading across her face. "You two look perfect together," she murmured, just loud enough for them to hear. Alex flushed faintly. Luciana laughed softly. Hand in hand, they stood beneath the fading sky, not rushing to define anything, not trying to leap ahead into the future. They simply let their hearts settle into a rhythm that felt right beneath the honey-soft glow of the dying day. And in that quiet space between day and night, between pain and peace, Alex understood something profound. Surviving the darkness was only part of the journey. The rest was finding someone willing to stand beside him when the morning finally broke.